Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive.
Hmm.
We love to take one single piece of content and just really dig in.
Hmm.
So today we're looking at a folktale, and
Ooh, fun.
it's a video. It's a short video, but it really packs a punch in a short amount of time.
I like those.
Yeah, and it really gets you thinking about generosity and, what happens when you're generous, and then also consequences.
Right.
Like what happens when you do something good or bad.
Yeah. And folktales are great for that. They're so simple,
Yeah.
but they pack those like hidden truths
Yeah.
about people, you know?
Exactly.
They really make you think about like human nature and
Yeah, and this one really does. So,
okay, I'm ready.
all right, so let's set the scene.
A woman made bread every day, but no one bought the bread. One day, an old lady came and said, "I don't have any money. It's okay, you can have it for free," the woman replied. The old lady took the bread and said, "Thank you." The next day she came again and said, "I don't have any money. It's okay, it's free for you," the woman said again. The old lady took the bread and said, "Thank you." This continued for weeks and the woman had enough. She decided to poison the bread. She made the dough and added poison. The old lady came again and the woman gave it to the old lady. "Just take it," shouted the woman. The old lady walked back to her house when suddenly she saw a bear attacking a little girl. She took a stone and threw it at the bear. She then came to the little girl and said, "You must be hungry. Take this." "Thank you," replied the little girl. And the old lady left. The little girl then ate the bread. At night, the woman noticed that her little daughter was missing. She went to look for her and found her lying under a tree holding the poisoned loaf of bread she gave to the old lady.
Set the scene.
Okay.
We've got a woman. She's baking bread every single day, and nobody's buying it. Times are tough, right?
Yeah.
And so she's just like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with all this bread?
Yeah.
And then one day, this old woman comes up to her and says, "Look, I don't have any money. Can I have some bread?" And so the baker's kind of like,
Right.
do I give her this bread for free, or what do I do?
Yeah, what's she gonna do?
And she ends up giving it to her.
Okay.
Maybe out of pity, maybe, because she just feels like she should.
Right. She's like, well, I have to help this person in need.
Yeah, exactly. And so she's like, okay, here you go. Have this bread for free.
Interesting already. I'm curious about what motivated her there.
Yeah, is it really selfless?
Right.
Is she doing it because she really wants to, or is it?
Yeah, is it for show or is it really from the heart?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
Okay.
But let's keep going with the story because it gets really good.
Okay.
So this old woman, she gets the free bread, and she comes back the next day.
Oh, no.
Same story. No money. Can I please have some bread?
Oh, boy.
And the baker's like, ugh, again.
Just starting to get a little frustrated.
Yes, exactly. And it just keeps happening. Day after day, this old woman comes back asking for the bread. And, our baker, she starts out feeling generous.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But then she just starts to get so frustrated.
Yeah.
Like she feels taken advantage of.
Oh, but I can see how that would happen. I mean, when you're trying to be a good person and help somebody out, and then it just feels like they're like walking all over you.
Yes.
Ugh, it makes you not want to be generous anymore.
Exactly. And that's exactly what happened.
Well.
So she gets so fed up, she decides to poison the bread. I know, right?
Oh, my goodness.
She's like, that's it. I'm done with this old woman. I'm going to teach her a lesson.
Wow.
So she bakes this fresh loaf of bread, puts poison in it.
Oh, my gosh.
And gives it to the old woman with this like a cold, dismissive attitude.
Oh, that's cold.
I know, right? So the old woman takes the bread. She has no idea, obviously, that it's poison. And she heads home. But here's where this story gets really crazy.
Okay.
On her way home, she sees a bear.
Oh, no.
I know, attacking a little girl.
Oh, my God.
And so the old woman, she's like, oh my gosh, I got to save this girl.
Right.
So she throws a stone at the bear, scares it off.
Okay.
And then she's trying to comfort this little girl who's completely terrified. And she offers her the bread.
The poison bread.
Yes, the poison bread.
Oh, my gosh.
Isn't that crazy? So the bread that she intended for the old woman,
Right.
it takes this total detour.
Wow. So it's like a, what goes around comes around kind of thing.
Exactly. And it really shows you how your actions can have these unintended consequences.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially when you're acting out of anger or revenge.
Yes, exactly. So now we've got this little girl with this poison bread.
Right.
And the story doesn't end there.
Okay.
The baker, she's at home and she's looking for her daughter.
Mm.
And guess what? She finds her daughter
Where?
under a tree with the poisoned loaf of bread in her hand.
Oh, my goodness.
I know, right?
Talk about a twist.
I know. It's like, whoa.
So she was trying to poison this old woman, and it ended up potentially poisoning her own daughter.
talk about karma, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think this story is trying to say?
Well, I think it's really interesting because it doesn't give us like a clear answer.
Right.
You know, some people might see it as a warning against revenge.
Right.
Like, don't do bad things because bad things will happen to you.
Right.
But it could also be about something more complex, you know?
Yeah.
Like maybe it's about the old woman's generosity.
Yeah.
Like even though she was treated poorly,
right.
she still wanted to help that little girl.
Right. She still gave away the bread even though she didn't know
like exactly.
it was poisoned.
Yeah, and it makes you think about our baker, too, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Was she really being generous at the beginning, or?
Right, was it just for show?
Yeah, or was she afraid of what people would think if she didn't give away the bread?
Exactly, and I think that's what makes this story so powerful.
I agree.
It makes you think about all these different perspectives.
Right, and it makes you question your own ideas about, like, generosity. Like, when is it truly selfless and when is it not?
And also it makes you think about society as a whole. Like,
right.
Maybe if people weren't so desperate, they wouldn't have to ask for help all the time.
That's a really good point. It's like, are we doing enough to help people so they don't end up in those situations in the first place?
Exactly. So it's not just about being nice to people. It's about fixing the system so that people don't have to constantly rely on the generosity of others.
It's about creating a world where everyone can thrive.
Yes, exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this question.
Okay.
If you were the baker at the end of the story, how would you feel? What would you learn from this whole experience?
That's a good question.
Would you see it as a punishment, or would you see it as a life lesson, or something else entirely?
Right. And what would you do differently next time?
Exactly. And, you know, maybe there's even more to this story than we've even talked about today.
Yeah, it really makes you think.
It really does. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.